theory of the brain that you had at the beginning. The difficulty is that it's unfalsifiable. So it is true that these experiences...
We don't know that. We haven't done the science. How do you know it's unfalsifiable?
So what
perhaps we using the power of psychedelics. I would say DMT is the psychedelic of choice because it's so uncompromising. The downside is it's really short acting, but it is possible to put people into a deeply altered state of consciousness on cue, and then perhaps they could seek out novelty in those other realms, come back with some new information. You could devise a scientific experiment that would be based on note-taking, if you like, by the volunteers. I mentioned some DMT experiences I had in Utah, in the United States. It happened that a couple of the guys there, the guy who owned the ranch and his chef, the other thing the chef did was he was a really brilliant research chemist, and so he used to make DMT. And the two of them would go out into the desert, I kid you not, every single night for a year, they went out into the desert and fired up the DMT pump. Within a few months, they were meeting each other on the other side. They were exploring a landscape together. And the accounts they gave to me were absolutely intriguing. And it occurs to me you could do this. You could do this scientifically. You could mount an experiment, regard the volunteers as explorers of an unknown realm. And if they start, and give them information to return with, you might get somewhere.
Yeah, it's just so deeply subjective. It's hard for it to account for the scientific methods expected.
That's what I'm saying. They would have to bring back some knowledge that they didn't have. That would be one way.
I'm just saying it would probably be difficult to have that in a clinical trial.
I don't know. Until we try. I know a number of people who are ready to do clinical trials like that. It's just you can't get approval to do them.
Bring back objects from other dimensions.
Concept.
So the other point I wanted to pick up on was, implicit in this presentation is that if we take psychedelics, if we expose ourselves to a spiritual worldview, then balance will be restored to society. And Daniel Pinchbeck in Breaking Open the Head says that the Aztecs use psychedelics while being enthusiastic practitioners of human sacrifice. And we have a modern day maybe expression of this with Silicon Valley entrepreneurs going to Burning Man and having their own indigenous ritual and taking psychedelics and seeming largely unchanged. So often psychedelics are framed as this panacea for the problems of the world, and yet the evidence might suggest that people can carry on living the way they do even if they take them in ritual settings. I just saw today that Miley Cyrus had her first experience of ayahuasca, which she found very profound. And I wonder, will she somehow challenge the neoliberal system of her party?
I actually don't know, but it's worth a try. It's worth a try. I mean, what's the alternative? Is just not to take ayahuasca. Good point. I would say go for it. Who knows? It may have an effect. Even on the hardest of heads.
Okay. Shall we open it up for questions? We've got one here. Conscious of taking questions from women in the audience. If you've got a question. Would it be useful for that?
Sure. So hands up then, please.
One of the things that I was thinking is that the ayahuasca experience and all the experiences that you have mentioned are very profound and shocking. And when he mentioned the thing that maybe they don't have the impact on these audiences, it's like, is there a way that it could be done in a more subtle way, where the knowledge that is brought back it's more subtle but more effective at long term?
Well, I mean, the first problem is we live in a society that will send us to prison for taking psychedelics. The only place we can get psychedelics is from drug dealers. I mean, this is the problem. We've created a society in which the potential of psychedelics is extremely difficult to explore in the kind of ways that you're saying. If psychedelics were completely legal, if our society didn't despise and hate them, if it didn't surround them with all this kind of negative energy that they're presently surrounded with, then it would be possible to explore and experiment in a much more open way, and to find ways to make these as beneficial as they can be. But in the present circumstances, I think it's a waste of time.
How important would you say context is in taking psychedelics, like Michael Harner?
Where are you?
At the back here.
Sorry.
Okay.
Hi.
Yes.
Michael Harner says, when he's talking about shamanism, that you have to make a distinction between the two paradigms that we live in. There's this reality and there's other realities.
Yes.
So the reality that we construct as collective may be directs our understanding after we take psychedelics. So it's easier to forget the experience and the implications of that after you've...
I think that it's well understood that the setting in which the psychedelic is consumed and our intention on that journey are at least as important as the substance itself. And then we have, I think this is what you're getting at, we have the broader setting of our society and the way that it's constructed.
So it's actually easy to forget the experience afterwards, because you say, okay, well, it was an amazing experience. Once you re-enter this reality in our normal constructs, you can't implicate them, because...
You can't bring it back to memory. Yeah, that's the problem. That's a big problem with DMT. Is actually bringing into coherent memory all those details of the experience. It's a very difficult thing to do. But again, if we were a society that saw value in these things and felt that they were good for the human being, we could find ways to maximize the experience in a positive manner, I think.
I think it's definitely possible to get back experience.
Say again?
I think it's definitely possible to remember a good experience.
It's possible, yeah. It requires some discipline and effort. It's like remembering dreams. You have to nail it right away. I think.
Hi. If you're taking psychedelics for self-improvement, do you think it might be better to have a practice where you're working from the inside out rather than from the outside in? So maybe meditation or something like that.
You see, I think that psychedelics are working from the inside out. I think they're part of that. I never feel very sympathetic to the view that this is an artificial substance you're taking and you should rely on the resources of your own body. You should meditate or you should whatever. Whatever anybody wants to do is great, but I don't think we should judge other people's path to the experience. I don't think that just meditation is necessarily better than just ayahuasca. Why not do both? I think we shouldn't put down the psychedelic experience because it involves taking a substance. I can't tell you the number of people who write to me through Facebook or through my website and say exactly that. There's an unnatural. It's too easy. It's an easy solution just to take a psychedelic and you get enlightenment. But you don't get enlightenment from taking a psychedelic. No, not at all. The work begins after the experience. That's when it matters. When you integrate that, you've learned certain lessons. Are you going to apply them in your life? Are you going to overcome a lifetime of bad habits to make that change that you need to make? I would say that all psychedelics do is open the door. The rest is up to you. And they don't open the door in any way better or worse than the other techniques of opening the door. Some of us, can slip into a deeply altered state of consciousness spontaneously. Don't even need, drumming or fasting or meditation in order to do it. We're all different, and that's the beauty of the world we live in, that it's provided us with. It seems to me that nature has invested heavily in allowing human beings to get into altered states of consciousness. We have got lots of ways to go there. Psychedelics are just peculiarly efficient ways of going there, but they're not the only way.
Kind of leading on from what you just said, so you're talking about looking to shamans for information for our new age of consciousness. I was wondering more about your opinion on where the shamans get their information from. So kind of like the first shaman, I don't know if you agree with this, but when the DMT spirit told him to go to the ayahuasca vine and to put those two together for the NOI inhibitors. And so I was just wondering your opinion of how deep it goes with the channel's information of what the plants are.
Yeah. Well, probably the shamans who received the teaching about making the ayahuasca brew, because that's what they all say, that the knowledge of how to make ayahuasca was taught to their ancestors by the spirits. Chances are that their ancestors were snuffing yopo, you know, and therefore they were in a DMT state when they had that experience, and that experience was saying, here's another way to work with this medicine, which you know, isn't a 12-minute journey, but it's a 4-hour. I think they were already in an altered state when they had that teaching. Yeah.
Just here in the front.
Sorry, we got to keep the microphone, otherwise we won't pick up on the other people in the other room.
We'll get you a microphone.
We'll start here and then afterwards, yeah.
Okay, so hang on, what's happening? Who asked me that? You asked me.
Start here.
Okay, I'm going to start there and then I'm going to come to you. Without it.
How do you protect yourself against some of the more negative aspects of the cosmos?
First of all, those negative aspects of the cosmos, unfortunately, are often manifested in fellow human beings. You know, I've noticed. I've been working with ayahuasca since 2003. I try to have some ayahuasca sessions every year. What I've noticed is that people are joining ayahuasca groups. It would appear deliberately to exploit the vulnerability of others. I've had direct experience of this twice, where an individual, for want of a better word, a kind of psychic vampire, joins ayahuasca, because what happens with ayahuasca is your shields come right down. Your shields come down, otherwise the medicine is not going to do its work. But when your shields come down, you're subject to all kinds of intrusions, and that's what shamans are supposed to do, to protect and to control the space. But they do not always succeed. There is dark and light in the universe. There is, I believe, fundamental good and fundamental evil, and it operates on the other side just as much as it operates on this side. So all you can do is come from a place of love, have a pure intent, and wish your fellow human beings well, and hope for the best. That's about it.
Yes, I was going to say, as you're currently in a position of authority on the stage.
Only because I'm on the stage. Yeah.
Exactly. And as it's the beginning of mushroom season, I was wondering if you'd like to take the opportunity to invite our fellow human beings to engage in a little shroom picking, perhaps.
Well, why don't you invite me?
Yes, you're on the stage, bro. You know.
Listen, whatever anybody does is entirely up to them. It's their own choices. I'm not here to tell people what to do or what not to do. But nature has gifted us with these remarkable fungi. We should consider the possibility that they're there for a purpose.
Thanks for your great talk. I so much enjoyed it. Out of interest in William James, he seems to have been kind of constantly torn between interest in consciousness and the traditional religious transcendence, so the higher order, as he writes about. So for him, the consciousness doesn't seem to have been enough, really, not external enough.
No.
What
a pity he never encountered ayahuasca.
Yeah,
maybe nitrous oxide didn't quite do it. Yeah. Cheers.
I just wanted to bring the conversation back to
to DMT, and you mentioned about the people you were with in Utah, was it? And the kind of, so the context of DMT and also the context of ayahuasca in a shamanic setting. What is your opinion on the usefulness or validity of these short DMT experiences versus the kind of ayahuasca shamanic 4 hour plus, which allows you to navigate that space and ask those questions? Do you think the regular short DMT experiences are beneficial in the same way?
Yeah, I do. I think they can be beneficial. Again, I want to be clear. I'm not instructing anybody that your life will be better if you go and smoke DMT. I don't believe that at all. It's up to us on our own resources to make our lives and the lives of other people better. DMT is not a magic pill at all, but it's a really interesting thing to do. It's interesting and challenging. I find that what happens with me and DMT is I get stuff that I hadn't realised I got. It comes through later. I don't want to use the word subconscious, but it's almost like there's some kind of download takes place. I have the sense of just a huge amount of information has come my way, and I trust that will come out again in some form. But I'm not, it's not like reading a book. It's much more jumbled and confusing. I do think it's worth doing. I will continue from time to time to smoke DMT for a while, maybe. I don't know. Every time I do it, and ayahuasca is the same. I have to brace myself. It's not like whoopee, here we go. It's like bloody hell, doing this again.
So Graham, this is a follow-up. Is it essential to take psychedelics to achieve this breakthrough understanding, or can it be achieved through other means? Because I'm thinking about people who don't have robust minds, they might suffer from mental health difficulties, and a prescription to take psychedelics is definitely the wrong thing.
It's definitely not essential to take psychedelics. No, it just, in my opinion, is one of the choices about our own bodies that sovereign adults should be allowed to make in this society. And it's a fundamental error of our society that we have created a punitive legislative framework that makes that impossible to do. I'm not saying it's a magic pill, I'm not saying it's a panacea, I'm not saying it brings instant enlightenment, none of those things. I'm saying it's really interesting. It's a valuable experience that adults can have, and we should be looking at changing society so that the enormous potential of that experience can be more fully explored than it has been up to now. But I'm not saying that it will just make everything better overnight. No, it won't. That being said, I've said this many times, if I had the power, I would require anybody running for presidential or prime ministerial office, they have to have a dozen ayahuasca sessions first. That's the baseline condition they have to meet in order to compete. After that, we'll see.
The London Mayor, someone could tweet that as a question or a suggestion to Zach Goldsmith. That would be good.
I think a lot of them would get out of politics altogether, and those who don't would be better politicians.
Would you like to go into politics?
No. I don't want to be in politics ever. No, thank you.
I feel like there's a link between psychedelics and just feeling more connected to everything, nature and people. And I wondered, I heard you talk about the procession of the equinox and just kind of awakening this happening. I wondered what your views are and how much of an impact you think that's having, and anything that you've seen a bit of an evolution in consciousness as you kind of thing.
I think things are definitely changing in the world. We've come out of a period of darkness and horror called the 20th century, We're entering into new territory, and there's lots of negative forces at work in the world today. Really quite horrible. But I definitely see a light flickering and growing all over the world, and that is the light of awakening. That is people awakening to the fundamental truth about themselves. Which is it's a cliche, but we're all brothers and sisters, and we are here fundamentally to manifest love. And anything that leads us away from that has just got to be wrong. And I see an awakening in that direction. And things like the internet has played a crucial role in this. It's really important. When I say, let me be clear about this, when I say I'm against patriotism, and I'm against nationalism, that doesn't mean I want one world government. I don't want one world government. I don't want any government at all. Minimal, absolutely minimal government is needed. But what we're seeing with the internet, and I really appreciate this, is people are forming links with one another all around the world. And when you link and connect directly with another human being somewhere else, it's really difficult to go and fight them after that. So it is unpicking the structures that have kept us in chains for so long. How it will turn out, I'm not sure, but I'm optimistic, positive.
If you're upstairs or in the live stream room, please come downstairs to this door if you have a question, because we don't have a mic up there. It's only a short walk.
Hi there. There's been a lot of talk about DMT and ayahuasca tonight, but no mention of changa. And changa is a pharma ayah. So
yeah, I smoke changa.
And I suppose that... Good.
It's milder than pure DMT.
Absolutely.
It's milder and kind of friendlier.
Yeah, and it's like, I haven't done ayahuasca, but I've done a lot of changa. Mm-hmm. And I did a lot of changa a few weeks ago at Azora Festival, which is a psychedelic trance festival in Hungary, where 30,000 people from around the world come to.
I should have gone. They invited me to go.
Yeah, it was amazing. I know you've been.
You said Mazar, yeah.
Yeah, you've been to Boom Festival a few years ago. I think you were there in like 2006 or 2008 or something. I didn't see your lecture there, but I was there at that festival. Boom's even bigger. Boom is like 50, 60,000 people in Portugal. Anyway, the point that I wanted to say is that the visions that I've had on changa have been fully holographic, and it has given me the experiential proof that I need to conclude that we live in a holographic universe. Mm-hmm. And the pineal gland is actually the vestigial peritoneal eye that amphibians and reptiles have. So, they have a patch of skin on top of their head. It contains rotting cones. That has, through evolutionary time, sunk down into the center of your brain. The pineal has a crystalline structure. It has piezoelectric properties, and therefore, that whole receiver-transmitter aerial kind of thing on a sort of quantum level can kind of operate in that way. But if the universe is holographic, it means that everything is connected to everything else. Everything's totally interconnected. And there's a lot of evidence that suggests that we do live in a holographic universe. Like you look at, I think it's Hawking radiation is a function of the the circumference of the black hole and not the volume.
Did you have a question there?
No.